The Adidas Copa Mundial is one of the most iconic football boots of all time. Since its release in 1979, it's been worn by some of the greatest players throughout history, like Zinedine Zidane, Franz Beckenbauer, and many more. And since the football boot was created over 4 decades ago, the design has hardly changed one bit. So the question remains, does this football boot still hold up by today's standards? And that's the question that we're going to be focusing on answering in this review. We're going to be talking about the design, the build quality, the comfort, the playability, and more. At the end of the video, I will leave a link to purchase this football boot at a discount if you're interested in getting your own pair of the Copa Mundials. Also, I'm going to give you some alternatives if you're still looking for a leather football boot, but you might want something slightly different. And now, let's get into the review. Starting off, let's look at the design of the Copa Mundial. So as you can notice just by the appearance, this boot has a full leather upper and it is still kangaroo leather, although that could be changing with new regulations that are coming out in the next few years. So if you want to buy a full kangaroo leather Copa Mundial, now would probably be the best time to buy it. The Copas also have this classic fold over tongue that's been here since the boots were first created. It adds a really nice aesthetic, and as a functional purpose, it does help cover the laces a little bit, making for a cleaner striking surface, but overall, I think it just adds a great retro aesthetic. The kangaroo leather upper that I mentioned previously is extremely soft, and the stitching throughout is really well done, and has held up amazing over the past year that I've been playing with these. Moving on to the lacing system, the Copa Mundial has a centralized lacing system here that's going to provide a really good lockdown. The only one thing I'll say is that the laces on these football boots are the absolute longest that I have ever seen in my life. In fact, when playing with these boots, the laces are so long that in order to securely have them around my feet, I had to wrap them beneath the boot and then tie them, just because there was so much excess length. But if that's a big enough issue for you, you can always just change out the laces for something else. Moving on to the back of the boot, we have a very simple sole plate here with just these 12 conical studs. And because these studs are rounded off, they're going to be good for use on both firm ground and artificial grass pitches. In fact, when I wear the Copas, I was predominantly playing on artificial grass surfaces, and these were my go-to boots. And other than that, the design is just really simple. There's not many bells and whistles or extra features that Adidas is trying to promote. Essentially, it's just a simple, comfortable kangaroo leather upper and a sole plate that's been the same for several decades. Next up, we're going to be talking about build quality, which is one of the strongest selling points of the Copa Mundial. Just to start off, the leather on these boots is just as soft as the day that I bought them. The only thing to note about the aging of the leather is that closer to the sole here, there is a little bit of dryness that's just due to the process of getting these boots wet and then trying them out in the sun. Obviously, if you're going to take these boots through the elements like I did, there is going to be a little bit of cracking on the leather over time. Overall, the leather has held up tremendously well over the past couple years. But the most notable thing for me about the build quality of the Copas is the sole separation on these boots. Now, this is an issue that you notice with almost any football boot from any brand, and that's the eventual separation of the upper from the sole. You usually see it around the toe box area or a little bit towards the instep, but with the Copa Mundial, despite using these boots really thoroughly for a couple years, I really did not notice almost any sole separation. And you can see here the gap between the upper and the sole is very, very slim and is held together very well. And I believe that the reason for this is due to the construction of these boots. If you'll notice at the top of the toe box, there are these 3 metal studs on the sole that are drilling in, and I believe they're creating an adhesive effect between the sole plate and the upper, giving that really solid, long-lasting connection. And so if you're frustrated about all your new and fancier boots breaking after 6 months just due to the sole separation, the Copa Mundial has found a great way to fix that problem. Next up, we're going to be talking about the playability of the Copa Mundial. Now, although I've really enjoyed playing in these football boots for a couple seasons, I think there are some important things to note here. First off is going to be the sizing of these football boots. It's very important to note that these boots stretch considerably over the course of playing with them for several months. This is something I noticed a lot when I bought my pair of Copas. So I am a true to size 10.5 for most football boots, but I bought these in a size 10, a half size down, and when I first tried them on, I would say they fit pretty close. My toes were probably coming up to within a centimeter of the end of the boot, and overall the fit was tight. But after playing with them for about 4 to 5 months, They expanded greatly and there was a lot more volume inside of the boots and more wiggle room around the toe box area. So if I could go back and buy these football boots again, I probably would have bought a 9.5, which is a whole size down from my usual size. So if you are interested in picking up a pair of the Copas, I would definitely recommend sizing down either 1/2 or a full size, or just try them on in the store and see what works best. And for a lot of players, the extra added volume in the Copa Mundial is actually going to be a good thing. For example, I have pretty wide feet, so wide fitting football boots are kind of a must for me, and that's why these were a great option. And if you do happen to have wide feet as well, the Copa Mundial is going to be one of your best options. That's why I also put it in my list of the best football boots for players with wide feet. And moving on to other aspects of the playability, I thought the lockdown was great from that centralized lacing system, so you never felt like there was any slipping on the field. And the boots felt pretty aggressive, even though the sole plate is very traditional and the studs haven't been changed for decades. I still felt a lot of traction on the pitch. One thing I will note about the sole plate though is over time, I did feel like I noticed a little bit of stud pressure, especially throughout the forefoot here and the instep. Just sometimes taking certain steps, I noticed a little bit of pressure coming from the studs here. It might be due to the fact that the insole of the boots has worn slightly over time, and that just makes there a little bit greater pressure and a little bit less material between your foot and the studs. But overall, you know, I've played in these boots and more modern boots, and I didn't really feel much of a difference in terms of playability. They're very comfortable and they'll allow you to play at your best. Now we discussed the playability, we're gonna talk about the value of the Copa Mundials, which unfortunately I think is one of the weak points of these football boots. And that's because these boots now do retail for a price of $160 US. And for what these boots offer, considering the other alternatives on the market, that's a lot of money. For example, you could pick up a pair of the Nike Tiempo Legend 9 Pros for $130, or a pair of the Nike Premiers for just $100. And the comfort and the leather of those football boots is pretty much the same as what you're gonna be getting on the Copa Mundial. The only key difference is that the Copa Mundial is probably gonna have a slightly higher build quality. And that brings us into the alternatives to the Copa Mundial. As I mentioned, if you're looking for more of a budget option, I would recommend the boots from Nike, either the Tiempo Legend 9 Pro or the Nike Premier 3. However, if you're looking for something that's a little bit more modern from Adidas, but still a leather football boot, I would recommend checking out the Copa Pure. Different from the Copa Mundial, the Copa Pure is gonna have a much more narrow fit, almost like a speed boot. It's also gonna be lighter in weight, so it should feel a little bit lighter on feet as well. The Copa Pure also comes in both laced and laceless variations, depending on what you're interested in. So finally, who would I recommend get the Adidas Copa Mundial? Well, if build quality, durability, and comfort are some of the most important things that you're looking for in a football boot, I think this is a really great option. Also, if you like more original and classic designs, you can't get more retro than the Copa Mundial. They're great football boots, and I think anyone could benefit from having them in their locker. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, and let me know if you're interested in seeing reviews of any other football boots. And I'll catch you on the next video.